welcome to a new segment that we're trying out called What If? And we're just going to bat around some ideas for a little while here, and hopefully something comes out that you might find interesting. If not, maybe this is not the segment for you, but we're hopeful.
Yeah.
So,
what's the first one you have?
The first one I have is something I was thinking about the other day, and it's what if the way that we're looking at addiction, in that we look at it as a disorder or a disease, some people look at it as a disease, what if that perspective is actually affecting the way that we treat it in a negative way, in that we're assuming that a person is dysfunctional because they have a propensity to want to self-soothe via whatever addictive behavior it is, eating, drugs, or they've already adapted a behavior that involves some sort of addiction. And what if this, the way that we're looking at it is wrong, in that it's just a sliding scale of sensitivity. So everybody is born with a different level of this, whatever this type of sensitivity is. We're starting to see some biological references in the brain and some research that's showing that certain areas of the brain are active when we're seeking to soothe via these addictive behaviors. And I mean, what if that's all it is just a level on you call it a scale of 1 to 10. If you're a 9 or a 10, and that you're highly sensitive to certain types of external stimulus, whether it's social or we'll call it any kind of stress, any external stress, you just don't have the same level of kind of innate resistance that other people do, and that's your starting point. So some people can build up their resistance by doing hard things like speaking in front of a crowd, or engaging in social behavior, or doing tackling their fears, whatever it may be, and build up that resistance, but they still have that predisposition. Mm-hmm. So many of those people, if that was a factor, and I believe it's at least some factor, would seek either these type of pathways that we were talking about with food as a way to soothe that feeling, or with drugs, alcohol, that kind of thing. So if we looked at it as more of it's not that something is broken, and it's just that this is the way you're designed. So could it be that we could get to a point where we isolate whatever genotype that is, and then you could tell at a very young age? I mean, we sort of know with family history and stuff like that, but what if you could pinpoint it exactly and say, well, this is, it's not that there's anything wrong with you. You're probably going to be, maybe it has other advantages, like you're more empathetic, or maybe like you'd be more likely to survive in the way that we lived as when we had to watch out for tigers and lions and stuff, because you're in this state of hypersensitive awareness. So maybe there's some advantages there, but being aware of that and treating it as the same way that you would treat somebody who's got a propensity to have diabetes. Maybe you're going to have to watch out for these types of things. This could be a problem for you. If you do end up trying drugs, just know that you're much more susceptible to these types of drugs that are highly addictive, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it would look differently. I mean, what we're talking about would change how drug and alcohol education in schools happens.
Exactly.
Change that whole conversation potentially.
Yeah. I mean, I heard on the radio the other day, they were talking about, how do I keep my kids away from drugs, but at the same time, I want to keep an open channel of communication. Mm-hmm. And it's not that, like, everybody wants their kids to be as healthy as possible. There's no question about that. But I think by just going ahead and attempting to, like, if the starting point is I don't want my kids to try any drugs ever, then I think you're sort of shutting down the doorway to communication right off the bat. Whereas if you could be realistic and say, you know what, when I was your age, I tried these things. I seem to be okay with this, and I wasn't okay with this other drug. Maybe you should stay away from that one. Or if you do experiment with it, be careful. You know, that might be a more realistic approach. And certainly if you had a scientific way, like an actual database or access to your genetic predisposition, then you could use that to further that education younger.
Yeah. So then I guess the question I would ask is how, as people's lives change and stressors pile up or traumas pile up or circumstances of their lives change, how do we then modify that as we go, as we navigate through life? Because like we've talked about, what was dabbling and experimentation in our youth wasn't that anymore when we were adults and professionals with different life stressors and
Well, remember when you had that conversation with the individual who told you to stay away from acute care?
yeah.
Maybe if you would have had a little more of a knowledge base about that aspect, you would have heard that and been like, you know what, that's not the first time I've been told that. You might be right. Maybe this is not for me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.